This session will be recorded and it will be sent out to you later on this afternoon into this evening. Attached to that recording is a questionnaire. It's just a couple questions, should take you no more than 2 minutes. And what we're ultimately looking for there is just feedback. We value your opinion, and we want to make sure that we're, putting on putting out there employers that you're interested in. And I know this presentation, we've done it previously, a lot of success. So that's something that we wanted to have the DCAA back and have this conversation. Another thing as well, we also have the chat open. So if you do have questions, feel free to post those questions into the chat, or at the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A. If you want to take yourself off mute during that time and ask any questions, please feel free to do so. I would certainly would recommend, asking any questions that you all might have. Awesome. So from here, what I'll do is I'm actually going to pass it over to Kelly. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Thanks, RJ. Appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. And yeah, RJ, if you can just keep track of those. I don't know if you want to, if they come in the chat, stop me and I ask them right there, or you can keep track of them on a Word document or something like that. We can address them all at the end so everybody hears them and knows what the answer is for them. That would be great.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Just a brief introduction for me. I usually try and tell a little bit about myself before I get started on this presentation. And we'll go through it fairly quickly so that we've got time to answer any questions you've got, and I'll try and cover the high points. But basically, my name is Kelly Berzay. I've been a DCAA employee for 34 plus years. I'm trying to retire at the end of the year. So it's been a great career. I love it as much now as I did when I started. So it's been great. Just a little bit about me. I've been a regular auditor. I've been a senior auditor. I've been a supervisor. I've been a quality person for our agency. I've also been a branch manager a couple times. And currently I'm a data analytics technical specialist and a recruiter. I've been recruiting for us for about 23 years. And right now I'm a full-time recruiter for about 4 months. And so I've been traveling around to a lot of schools. It's been kind of crazy and talking to a lot of students. Some of the things I've done as far as auditing goes, I've audited small contractors, mid-sized contractors, obviously large contractors like the Boeings and Lockheeds and Northrop Grumman's of the world. I've traveled. I've spent my whole 35-year career in Utah, but I've traveled and audited in several different states and also overseas. I spent 27 months overseas, 18 months of that in Afghanistan, and 9 months in Kuwait doing audits for the government while I was there. So that's just a little bit about my background and what I've done, and hopefully that'll give you an idea of some of the experience that I have there. So what I want to talk about to start with is we're going to talk a little bit about DCAA and some of the things that the opportunities we have, but this is the agenda for today's meeting. We're going to talk about DCAA. I'm going to look about DCAA auditing, some of the type of things that we do, and the type of audits and type of work and some of our benefits that we have, and then obviously opportunities for students and recent grads or alumni, whatever it might be. We're as long as you're qualified to work for us, we're going to try and interview you and see if we can find a spot for you. And then tell you a little bit how to go about applying for those positions, give you my contact information. And as RJ mentioned, we'll have a Q&A at the end of our session. So this next slide here, this is just to our website. If you guys want to take a shot of that, I'll leave this on for a minute. I was going to try and, I think you can get a check-in box out of Handshake, and there wasn't one out there for this particular one we do, but this will just take you out to our website so that you can research and get some more information of what's going on. So a little bit about DCAA. Basically, in 1965, all the arms of the military, I guess is what I would like to say, they all had their own auditors. And in 1965, they basically consolidated that to what's called the Defense Contract Audit Agency. And so The other arms of the military still have internal auditors, but they don't have auditors that do like what we do. And so basically DCAA's mission is to conduct contract audits and provide accounting and financial advisory services regarding contracts and subcontracts to all DoD components responsible for procurement and contract administration. So basically we do audits for the Department of Defense, but we also bill ourselves out to other government agencies such as NASA, the Department of Energy, Department of Transportation, those type of things that they do. And as it says here in this first bullet, we conduct audits basically for government contractors, anyone that provides a service or supplies or weapon systems, etc., to the warfighter. And so that's what we do. DCAA's audits and financial advisory services enable the contracting officers to make necessary investments to deter current and future threats while minimizing the resources required. So we'll be talking about this a little bit different. You can see in that third bullet that we save approximately $3 billion in U.S. To the U.S. taxpayers and the warfighters every year. And that money that we save is then turned around and helps us get better equipment for our warfighters to help protect our agency. So our contract audits are independent professional reviews of financial representations made by the defense contractors. So on another slide, we talk about a little bit, we're different than your typical public accounting firm. Public accounting firms usually are auditing financial statements and they're putting out a report and an opinion on those financial statements. We don't audit financial statements of the government contractors. So as you can see here, we basically audit and examine contractors' accounts, records, and business systems, and we evaluate whether the contractor's business practice and procedures are in compliance with federal acquisition regulations. So that's what we do. And you can see in that second slide, whether it's an aircraft carrier, a submarine, tank, helicopter, any of those type of things, we're going to go ahead and we're going to audit that. And so that's an important thing that we're doing. I wanted to give you just a couple, I have a few stats here really quick. I'm going to read to you this is out of our 2022 reporting. We performed 2,560 reports. We examined $262 billion in cost. So this was in 2022. And we took exception or questioned $5.759 billion in cost. Now, this kind of ties to that last bullet. We're very conservative in what we actually save the taxpayers. We went before the other government agencies and said, hey, we've looked at this $262 billion. We think they overcharged the government $5.7 billion. And then there's a negotiation that happens. And we then look at those negotiations and we say, well, we saved X amount of dollars because of our audit reports. And in this case, we reported in 2022 about $3 billion in savings. So again, we're very conservative in that area, but a lot of savings to the government, you can see, and a lot of dollars for what we're doing. Also wanted to just tell you a little bit about our staffing. We have almost 4,000 employees and 89% of those are auditors. And so we'll be talking about our qualifications when we get a little bit further down, but basically we audit or we hire accounting majors. You have to have 24 credits of accounting to qualify to work for us. So if you're a finance major, business administration, some of those you would lack the accounting credits to do that. But there's also other ways to qualify. So if you're a finance person, don't drop off the line, hang around, because you might still qualify due to experience or other things that are there. So 89% of our employees are auditors. The rest are professional support staff that we have. So that kind of gives you a little bit of idea of background and a few things about DCAA. So we'll go to the next slide. Now we're going to look a little bit about the audits. This first part we were talking about what we do is different than your normal accounting firm. because we're going to be looking at the costs of those items, whether it's an aircraft carrier, submarine, whatever it might be. So I usually use an example when I'm talking to candidates and I'm talking about DCA. I always liken it to building a house. If you were to build a house, you would get a bid from a builder and they would, price everything out individually. I would then take that bid that you got from the builder and I'd go to the lumber yard, I'd go to the HVAC, the plumbers, electrician, the roofers, the cement people, all those things. And I would price all those costs out, either the material costs, the cost of labor, etc. And let's say the bid on that house was $400,000. I might come back and say, no, you can build it for $350,000. We would sit down with the builder and negotiate somewhere in between, let's say $375,000. I just saved you $25,000. So that's kind of a watered down version of what we do. We do cost accounting, but we're usually dealing in the million and billions of dollars, i.e. an aircraft carrier is very expensive for what we're doing. And then again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to ensure the taxpayers and the Department of Defense is getting the best value for every dollar that's spent. And so because we are, most of us on the line, as I understand, are probably accountants, and we're in that at least financial world, our budget, I believe, is $600 million. If you were to give me $600 million and I gave you $3 billion at the end of the year, you would probably want to invest in me, and maybe twice on Sunday. But we still have a hard time getting a budget and, doing those things, but for every dollar they give us, we return almost $5. So it's a great investment for the taxpayers and for the Department of Defense. And of course, we're looking at the costs to make sure they're classified correctly and reported and basically billed to the government accurately. That's what we do as an oversight group when we're there. And when I was in Afghanistan, that's what I was doing. I was auditing government contractors that were providing meals, services, fuel, housing, etc. for the military. So here's, I'm just going to briefly go over some of the audits we do. We do a lot of different kinds of audits, but basically these are the three major audits we do. Forward pricing rate audits. This gets back to our example of the house. That if you're going to build something, you would go out and get a quote. And so if the government needs a new fighter jet or tank or submarine or whatever it might be, they put a solicitation out there for a bid, and the contractor will then bid on that particular item. Now, the contractor doesn't know what their labor rates are going to be next year. They don't know what their material costs are going to be. So a lot of the things they're doing, they're estimating, they're building these bids based on history, based on forecasting in the future what might happen, whether it's inflation or those type of things. And so if the government needs a aircraft carrier, they're going to go out and solicit bids. And when that bid comes in, we're then going to look at the nuts and bolts and all the different parts and labor and paint, whatever it might be, overhead. And we're going to audit that and come back, and we're going to give the procurement agency, our point of view of what we think the cost would be, and that's what they're going to do. So those forward pricing rates, that's what that is when we're doing it. And we also do that for labor rates. We don't know what the labor rates are going to be in the future, but there's escalation and different indices that we can use to estimate what those are. And so that's how we go in and look at it. And then depending on how much history we have in that particular contract, we might use a fixed price contract versus a cost type contract. So that's something that we don't really talk about, but that's what we do it. So depending on our risk is what kind of contract we do. The second audit is that's listed there, system audits. We used to do 10 of these. I think we're down to 3 or 4 of them we do now. Obviously, we look at their accounting system because a lot of the things that we rely on during our audits are coming out of their accounting system. So we look at their system and determine whether it's adequate to accumulate, bill and record costs, those type of things to do. We also look at labor costs. We look at material costs, their system, material system, purchasing system, labor system, those type of things, so that we can rely on them during our audits. And then this last part is our incurred cost audit, we call them. And this is basically, it's just going back to our example of the house. Once we get that bid going on, the builder starts building the house. We're there to audit and make sure that they put the foundation in, for example, before we release any money for the foundation costs. And then when they built the walls, we'll give them some more money, et cetera. And that's what we do. So we're auditing the contracts once it come on contract to make sure that they're billed correctly to the government and make sure there's no overbilling that's going there. So those are the three type of audits that we basically do. We do a lot of different audits, but these are our main ones that we do. We do claims and terminations and, other type audits, cost accounting standard audits and different things. But these are the ones that we spend a lot of our effort and time in. Hopefully that makes sense. And these are some of the examples that we might do to ensure that the DoD is, billing the costs and that they're allowable and reasonable. And we do have criteria. It's the federal acquisition regulations that we go into. So for example, on the incurred cost, one of the things might be is alcohol is an expressly unallowable cost. So we would look to make sure that there was no alcohol charged to a contract. It might be the contract states that you can't bill overtime on a contract. So we would go in and look at the costs that were being billed to the government, make sure that that wasn't happening either. So this first bullet here, you can see we examine the financial statements as part of our incurred cost audit. And what we do there is just make sure that the company is a going concern, that they don't have too much debt, that they'll be able to fulfill the requirements of the contract. We don't want to order airplane and only get one wing on it. That won't help us to do anything. So we got to make sure that they are financially stable and they're going to be able to, do the contract. So we do review financial statements that are done by public accountants. We just don't do the audit and opine on them, et cetera, like they do. And we already talked about this second one, that we looked at the billing system and time recording processes. And you got to imagine some of our contracts, let's say Boeing, for example, might have 10,000 employees. And if they're charging on 3 different contracts in a day, that's 30,000 time charges a day for however many, work days there is in a year. You can see that that's thousands upon thousands of, into the millions actually of data that we're going to go in and process. And that's one of the things I do in my current job as a data analytics technical specialist, is that we can go in and use Power BI and some of those things and be able to analyze and do data profiling very quick, because we can't look at all those. The second one, we're talking about proposal pricing. That's similar to what I was talking about building the houses. We want to make sure that the materials are charged are correct. We'll do market research and look at historical pricing. Now, sometimes things change, right? We don't know, like when during the pandemic, we couldn't get a lot of materials, and so they went up. I mean, lumber, for example, if we go back to our example, building a house, was very expensive and it was hard to get. So, if we had a contract with a contractor and something like that happened, we would try and do an adjustment to the contract so we can make them whole. We don't want, that to happen. Earlier in my career, I audited a contractor that built the shuttle rockets, that put the shuttle up in the air, and they use ammonium perchlorate as part of the mixture for that burn that gets the propellant that takes them up in the air. And we only had 2 vendors at the time. And I think one of them was in Henderson, Nevada, and their facility blew up, caught on fire and blew up. So all of a sudden we only had one supplier. So had we went in and done a contract and we thought the cost for ammonium perchlorate was going to be a certain amount, well, that changed because of circumstances. And so we have to go in and review the contracts and find out, because now we only have one source, or might be a shortage, therefore it's more expensive, et cetera. But those are some of the things that we do. The one bullet here talks about interviewing employees, and we call them labor floor checks. That's one of the exciting part of this job that I like, is at most places when we go out and audit these government contractors, we get a tour of their facilities. I just met one of my team members here a month ago in Dallas, and she had just toured the submarine. Her office audits the submarines. And of course I asked, did they close the hatch and take you out in the water? But no, they're building the submarines. But you get a chance to go out there and do that. And so we interview the employees that are out on the floor doing this to find out what they're doing. And we get to see the processes, how they're doing it. And that's what I find interesting, is that it's different things, and the government makes some crazy stuff. I told a lot of the students lately when I've been going that there's a place here in Utah that's not too far away from me. If you go to their facility, they have a mini racetrack outside their facility, and guarantee if you went there today, there's a white pickup truck going around and around on the track, and there's nobody in the truck. And the reason why is they make unmanned vehicles, and we need that for our pilots to practice in war type situations. And it's kind of hard to get a volunteer to drive the truck. So anyway, we go out and do that. So those are some of the interesting things, and we get to go there and see it and find out, talk to them, how they came up with this idea and do things. And so that's what's really exciting. And then we spend a lot of time writing and presenting work papers, obviously, our findings when we go out and do that. And that last bullet talking about going out to the assembly line and watch them do it. When I audited earlier in my career at the location that did the propellant for the shuttle rockets, we actually sat in a bunker about, I don't know, half a mile away from where they were actually mixing, and they were doing it by remote control. Because if a screw falls into the mixing tank, even, it'll create a spark and it'll blow pretty much everything up within a quarter-mile distance. So that's why we're away from it. So just interesting stuff to go out there and see and touch and feel. And I did audits at Utah State University for 12 years, and they put more experiments in the International Space Center than any other university in the world. And I've touched the chambers that grew wheat from seed to seed in the International Space Center. I've felt, touched, looked at, audited satellites that they put out in space. It's just a real interesting, fascinating job. And I think that's why I like it so much. It's not the same every day. I'm not looking at the same, 1040 form or whatever it might be. So this next slide here, talking a little bit about our jobs beyond a desk job. And I already talked a little bit about this, but some of my experiences of being overseas is a prime example. Is, I would have never dreamt when I became an accountant 35 years ago that I would be flying around Black Hawk helicopters with military escort in the middle of a war zone, doing audits for the federal government. And so that's what happened. It was exciting, but scary at the same time. And how that really happened is when my youngest daughter graduated from high school. I actually was an empty nester then, and I don't know, maybe had a midlife crisis, and I signed up. The war was on, and I said, I'll go over as a civilian to Kuwait, Afghanistan, or Iraq. We all had openings in those, and they actually selected me to go to Kuwait, which is a non-war zone. And I actually took suitcases to go there and did my training and went over on a commercial flight like normal. But I was only there 4 hours, and they promoted me to run our agency for Afghanistan. So I started popping malaria pills, and 2 days later I was in the middle of the war zone. And so it was just really crazy. But we had a lot of contractors over there that provided meals and fuel and housing and vehicles, et cetera, for the military. And so, for example, on a base, we might be there and they're charging the government for 6,000 meals that day. Well, we want to make sure that there's 2,000 troops on that particular base. Otherwise, they're overcharging the government. So that's just what we were doing. And one of the big, it was a heartbreaking audit, actually, I did when I was in Kuwait in 2016. I worked with several different agencies, DCIS and DODIG and some of those. And we were doing a human trafficking audit where there was these government contractors were bringing in what we call third country nationals from Bangladesh, India, et cetera, bringing them into Dubai and promise them these big jobs that would pay good money. And then when they got there, they would say, no, but you can go to Afghanistan and wash dishes for, $1,500 a month or something. And so a lot of those people, they wouldn't go home for 3 years because they were sending all the money to home to pay their debts. And so the requirement is they can only have 2 to a room. They make sure they're feeding them, giving them water. But we were auditing a contractor that was putting 4 or 5 to a room, 130 degrees in a bus, and not giving them water on the way home, not feeding them properly. So what we do is we do an audit there to try to debar that company so that they cannot do business with the federal government and therefore not be able to participate in those type of things. So there's a lot of oversight in different ways than just looking at the financial type of things. But I was very proud of that audit that we did to help, those individuals and things that we're doing. So that's what I like about it, with it not being a desk job. There's so many different things that we can do, and you can be, on an aircraft carrier one day, and the next day you're in a corporate boardroom with a CEO that's making millions of dollars, and you're trying to explain to them that they overbilled the government by a couple $1 million or whatever it might be. And so there's just a lot of variety to it. You really need good communication skills to work and do what we're doing. And there's also other things in our agency. We're not just auditors. Like in my case, I'm a data analytics technical specialist now, but we have other things where we have people that are financial liaison individuals. You guys probably seen that pop up. They're reminding me to restart my computer. We got an update on something today. We have a financial liaison auditors, or a lot of our buying commands across the country. And so that's something you can do. We have a couple teams that just do investigative support, meaning they just look for fraud, and they work with the Defense Contract Investigation, DCIS, Defense Criminal Investigation Service. And they try to find people that are committing fraud to the government. And if they do, then they might testify in court, and those people get fined and get jail sentences for doing that. We also have data analytics team, quantitative methods teams. You could just be on a compensation team where they just basically look at the various compensations for CEOs and various labor rates around the country. You could be a technical specialist. I spent 3 years. We have a accredited university in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was an adjunct professor there for 3 years, where I flew down there about every other month and taught a class for a week. And so you can do that. And that, while we're talking about that, I think there's a later slide on it, but we'll give you about 300 hours of training your first 2 years. So it's really good. But the bottom line is there's a lot of different things that you can do to be able to work with DCAA and not just, be a desk job and do audits all the time. Here's some of the things that we're looking for to be a good auditor. What I'm looking for, we're really looking for strong analytical and written verbal communication skills. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. I mean, with what we do, we talk to the contractor, we talk to high level. When I was in Afghanistan, I met with a Fourth Sergeant General, with other individuals, obviously on a daily basis, about the war. And so, you need to be on your game and be able to explain what you're doing and why we're doing it. And most of the time where we work on a team, we have 4 or 5 team members for every supervisor. And but a lot of times you have your own audit, or you're working as part of an audit on a team, but that's what we have to do. And it is pretty complex. A lot of people might come from the audit world, and that helps you because you know audit programs and you know how to audit and some of those things. But we do things a little bit different because we are the only one that really do these contract audits. And so if you're willing to learn the complexity of that, then you'll be successful for what we're doing. And obviously, I kind of joke sometimes that we hire 2 types of people in DCA. We hire accountants and auditors, and we should fire all accountants. And I'm just being facetious because we're all accountants. I'm an accountant. But what I'm trying to say there is, a lot of times accountants could maybe be checklist people, and they just want to read the checklist and go down to the next one. But we need people that are complex thinkers. And when somebody asks you a question, that you're able to ask follow-up questions. I always tell people, at least in my case, it's terrible to be married to me, because I tell my wife we're professional fault finders. That's what we do. And I feel sorry for her. We might be watching TV and she tells me something. I'll look at her and say, that's not right. And it's just the auditor in me, because we are logical people. And, I think her sister told him we got 900 inches of snow last year in Utah. And I was going, no, there's no way we had that much snow, but maybe 90 inches. But anyway, that's what we're looking for. People that are detail oriented and complex thinkers. So that's really good. And then, of course, a lot of the people that I interview and things, the reason why they got into accounting is because it's kind of like a puzzle, and being able to, piece together and analyze the evidence. And I always tell people that's one thing I like about our jobs. We get under the hood of the business and try to understand, what they're doing. So that's awesome. Okay. Why work for DCAA? This is just kind of another what we're going to be talking about here. So I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but talk a little bit about the mission, some of our career development. I talked about a little bit on that, the learning and the stability of federal benefits, our salaries, and then varied work locations where it's at. So I talked about this a little bit earlier. We have our own accredited educational institution. It's called Defense Contract Audit Institute. It's located in Atlanta, Georgia. And so we really have two sides of that. We have a technical side where we send our auditors there to be trained. When you come on to start with, you go there for 2 weeks and get trained, come back to office for 6 weeks, go back there for 2 weeks, come back to office 6 weeks, go back there for 2 weeks. That's your initial training and working. So we give you a lot of that. And then we also have a leadership side. The other side of that accredited institution is the leadership side, where we send our managers and supervisors, et cetera, to learn to be better leaders and get the soft skills they need to, make our teams function great. So that's really what we do. We also have, when you come on to start with, we give you a sponsor to start with, and that sponsor just basically shows you around the office and where the restrooms are and the cafeteria or whatever. But you'll be given a coach, and so you get a coach your first few years, and it's usually somebody on your team that you can go to help you navigate the onboarding process and answer any questions you have. Plus you have other team members and your supervisor help you with that. Once you get into management, that's when we call mentoring. If you are a supervisor or something like that, we'll assign you a mentor that helps you, develop in your leadership skills and other things that you want to do. And also we reimburse if you're wanting to get your master's degree. And I'm assuming that most of us, because we're targeting masters at WGU, is that we pay for the master's degree. Also, if you're interested in getting the CPA, we pay for the CPA coaching course, the CPA exam fees, and the licensing fees. So that's something that is a great benefit to work for DCAA. And of course, the stability of jobs, we say that, and they tried to shut us down a couple of weeks ago, right? So that's what's always hard for us sometimes is that if they just sign a budget and let us go. I mean, maybe there's some agencies you can do that, but with the IRS, who collect taxpayers' money, which helps pay for things, and we are saving about $3 billion a year. Well, they probably should never shut us down. But anyway, I've been doing this 35 years, and I think there's been 3 or 4 days that I didn't get paid, and out of those days that they furloughed us. And so that's pretty stable. We get generous paid time off. We have 11 days of paid holidays. And then we have, you get 13 days of sick leave your whole career. You get 13 days of vacation your first 3 years, then it goes to 20 days. And after you've been with us for 15 years, you get 26 days of vacation time. The next one, I think, is this next bullet is why I probably stayed with DCAA. So it's the flexible work schedules. We can work 8-hour days, 9-hour days, or 10-hour days. And the flexibility is our core hours is that you need to be in the office between 9:30 and 2:30, but we can start as early as 6 a.m. So when my sons were in high school playing football, I worked from 6 to 2:30, and I could be on the field at 3 o'clock every day till 7, 8 o'clock at night, whatever it took for 15, 16 weeks. We don't really have a busy season, so we're able to do that. So that's really helped our work-life balance. I'm also a professional auctioneer, so I got late to the game today, but I did one of these the other day, and I was doing tongue twisters and selling stuff before we started just to kill some time. But because of that work-life balance, I'm able to do some of those things on the side. And we have people here in Utah that love to ski, and they can work from 6 to 2:30 and be on the ski slopes at 4 o'clock every day. So, but that to me has been the best thing to be able to do that. And then of course we have a variety of health and life insurance options, transit subsidies. If you want to take the bus or train to work, they'll pay for that. And we already talked a little bit about the educational reimbursement, and we also have college loan forgiveness. I think that program is you have to make your payments every year for 10 years, and then they'll pay a certain amount or whatever that loan forgiveness after that time. But you have to be in the program for 10 years and not miss a payment. So don't know all the details of it because I wasn't part of that. And then this last part is we have a 3-part federal retirement program. So we have basically a 401k that they match dollar for dollar up to 5%. And we have a pension, and we also have Social Security. So those are the 3 benefits that we get from there. And our salaries are pretty competitive. The big thing you have to remember is because the Big Four does pay more money than we do, but you're going to work a lot more hours. Ours are based on 40-hour work weeks. And so how it works, most of you guys on the phone are supposed to be master's degrees, I think. If you are, you'd qualify as a GS-9. Within 52 weeks, you'd be promoted to a GS-11, and a year after that, be GS-12. That's our working level. And so I've been doing this. We have employee standards that you have to meet. As long as you meet those, then you'd be non-competition. You'd be promoted to that next level. So I've been doing this 35 years and only know a couple people that didn't meet those standards. So, you should be able to do all those things. Let's see. Yeah, so we have about 230 offices, I think, actually in 41 states. And we have, I don't know that we have anybody in the Middle East. We used to have in Saudi Arabia. I know Kuwait's not there anymore, but Wiesbaden, Germany right now is where we audit all of Europe out of. That's our headquarters, is Wiesbaden, Germany. When I was in Kuwait, we did an audit in Amman, Jordan, and I went over there with my auditor. I didn't want her going there by herself. And we actually took one day off and we walked through Petra, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. And so that was pretty awesome to be able to do that too. But anyway, we're not there. We don't have anybody in the conflict zone or anything. I've tried to get them to update this slide for that too. But anyway, the locations, if you are looking for one where we have 230 offices in 41 states, there's a good chance we have one, close to where you're at. Let's see. Okay, this one here is for internships. I'm going to go over this really briefly because none of you on the phone, if you're master's students, would qualify for this. We're looking for usually sophomores and juniors in school so they can take this in the summer and come on full time with us. Our intern program is a little bit different because there are 640 hours, so you can't just get it done in 90 days. So it's a little bit different, but by all means, if you have somebody that's interested in this or whatever, my contact information is at the bottom of this. Reach out to me and I'll see if we can, help them out with internships. Okay, let's see. So these are the qualifications for permanent audit position. Okay, so education requirements already talked about. We like you to have a bachelor's degree in accounting or auditing, or you can have one in a related field, such as business administration, finance, public administration, that includes 24 semester hours of accounting. So this second bullet is actually very unusual. Usually finance or business administration, they usually think they do financial and managerial accounting and a business law. And so they might have 9 to 12 credits. So, but that 24 credits of accounting can be 18 credits of accounting and 6 of business law. So that second bullet there, it can be a combination of both. So you can have at least 4 years of experience in an accounting auditing career, plus one of the following. Very seldom we see if you don't have an accounting degree, you still don't have the 24 credits of accounting. So that doesn't help you. It would be that you might have been working in accounting and you are a certified public accountant or a CIA. And so they're usually not there. Also, you must be a U.S. citizen to work for the federal government. So that's something that you have to consider. We can't get around that. Also, not on this slide is a minimum GPA, but because you guys are most of your masters, you don't have to, the GPA doesn't count, but for bachelor students, that's 2.95. And that's one of our issues with WGU that RJ and I are trying to figure out sometime, because we're not accepting pass fail in the grade system there, which is too bad, because there's a lot of students I'm sure we're missing out on that are great candidates. Anyway, that's how you do that. This is just an example of the salaries and how it works. And so these are all different. If you see here, this is for actually Baltimore and Washington, D.C. Where I'm at, these salaries are lower because it's the rest of the United States. And it's really based on here. You can see the locality pays 32.49. So in your case, let's just say that you were looking for a job in Washington, D.C. Since you have a master's degree, you would start as a GS9, which is almost $65,000. In 1 year, you'd be making $78,592. And the year after that, you'd be at $94,199. So that's how it works. And once you get to this level, they start doing steps across here. So you can see you'd be a step 1. A year later, you'd be a step 2, step 3, step 4. And then I think there's 2 years between 5, 6, whatever. And then if you want to be a 13, you'd compete for that. You would interview with other workers and try to get that. So this is just an example. If you reach out to me and tell me where you're at after whatever, I can tell you how to get and know what the salaries are in your areas. Okay. So applying for positions at DCAA is really easy. I have direct hire authority. So all you got to do is send me an email, attach your resume and transcripts to me, and you can use the body of your email as a cover letter if you want. You don't necessarily have to. Just send me your resume and transcripts, and then I'll reach out to you and try to figure out a time when we can set up an interview. And if you do well in the interview, I will give you immediate feedback. I'll tell you whether I think you're a good fit or not. And if you are, then I send your resume and transcripts to our HR personnel, and I will recommend you to be hired. And it's up to our HR to actually extend you a job offer and start the background check. And we all have secret clearances to work for DCAA, so we have to go through that process to do it. Let's see. And of course, we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Handshake, all those things that we're doing. But the big thing is you can send me, there's my email down there again. And you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm out there too. I didn't put my handle here or whatever I'm supposed to do. All right, I did good. RJ, I put on my auctioneer voice, and look, 45 minutes. So we still have time for any questions you want to ask me.
Right on time. I like it. So for anybody that does have questions, feel free, you can post them in the chat, or if you want to come off mute, you have the capability of doing so. So if you want to come off mute and ask Kelly any questions that, maybe he covered during the presentation or anything from his own personal experience, feel free to do so.
Don't be shy. I'm an open book.
And as people are thinking of some of those questions, just a reminder that this was recorded. So this will be sent out later on this afternoon into this evening. So if you jumped on late, don't worry. This was recorded. It will be sent out to you. So just a reminder on that. Make sure you're keeping an eye out for your inbox for this.
I have a question. My name is Misha. My question is, I just started my master's degree program. Would I still be eligible for a hire with DACA with just my bachelor's degree, even if I just started my master's program?
That's a great question. Let me ask you this. When are you planning to be done with your master's?
That'll probably be next year. I recently just started. October 1st was my first day.
Okay. So the situation is, and we won't get into too many details because it's kind of tough, but we don't accept a bachelor's degree from Western Governors University because your transcripts just shows pass fail. And so everybody has a 3.0 basically for them to do it. But the DFAS and the government side of things, they don't accept that. RJ and I are working on that issue to try and change that dynamic so we can do it. So in your particular case, you wouldn't be qualified until you got your master's degree. And that's why we're trying to reach out more for the master's degree, because there's no GPA associated. I don't know if the government thinks the reason that, you know, you couldn't get in, which I don't know, how do I say this? Because it's confusing for me. It's like, well, you got into the master, so you must have a decent GPA. I'm going, well, how would they get in the masters if they didn't? But anyway, the answer to your question is you would have to have your master's degree. And so right now I'm interviewing people that are going to have their master's degree by June of 2024. So if you were going to be done by June 2024, you could interview now. And if you did well in the interview, we would start the process and you wouldn't be able to come on until you actually had your certificate in your hand that you had graduated. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There were some questions in the chat. First one, is there a hiring age limit to be considered for one of the positions?
That's an excellent question. Absolutely not. No age, no experience, no nothing. If you qualify and meet those qualifications, I interview you and I think you'd be a good fit for DCAA, we will hire you.
Hi, Patrick Bennett. I have a question. For the accounting, I mean, a CPA requires 24 hours also. I have my degree in finance. I'll be done with my master's probably in December. I've worked 10 years for ERS, but I don't have 24 hours of accounting. I also don't have 5 years experience in auditing, so I can't get a CIA, a certified auditors. Is that going to be an issue? Because I mean, it's the 24 hours. I mean, I'm possibly going to get a CMA next year, but not a CPA because I don't have 24 hours of accounting.
Okay, so Patrick, that's a great question. This is what I'd suggest you to do, and anybody else is on the line to do that. If you have a question and you're not sure, and especially if you have experience, because I know a lot of the WG students are adult learners and sometimes it's changing careers or whatever, I would suggest you to send me your resume and transcripts, and then we can have HR make that determination. So what I don't want to do is say, no, don't send it to me, but your experience might qualify you for a position with DCAA. And I don't know if it would be a GS9, it might be a GS7, but yeah, if you're borderline and don't know, then go ahead and send that to me. I have no problem sending that up to our HR personnel, and the worst thing they can say is no. But if you don't send it to me, then the answer is no.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, and good luck, because there's other things that that maybe they do. I'm not the qualification guy. I'm the interviewer, and do those type of things. Our HR does all the quals. So.
Next question in the chat, do employees have to maintain a daily activity log?
Man, I don't think I'd last 35 years if I had to do that. No, we don't. And I think where that question's probably come from, this is an excellent question, actually, is in public accounting, a lot of times you're working with several different clients. And so that's why you keep those logs. So you know that you have to bill out 15 minutes to, this client, 15 to there. We don't do that. So, but you do keep a timesheet because we're doing audits. And so if we're doing an audit, a particular type audit, we would fill out, the timesheet. Like what I do right now, I put the same time down every day because I'm an indirect employee. And so mine goes into indirect because I'm doing audits. Now, when I'm a data analytics technical specialist, if I have to spend more than, let's say, an hour or two, then I might charge to a particular audit out in the field, just so that we're showing how much time it is. But yeah, we don't have to keep a daily log. You do have to have a timesheet on a daily basis, but if you only have one audit, you just charge that audit.
So one question that came in, this individual has earned their BS and MBA in the last 6 years. Do the accounting hours from both degrees count towards the 24 accounting hours?
Yes, just as long as you've taken 24 credits of accounting. So let's say you started out in finance, then you get 9 credits of accounting and maybe 1 business law class, which gives you what, 12, and then you did something else. Let's say got your marketing degree with a minor in accounting or whatever, and there was another 12 credits there. Then yeah, it's just getting 24 credits of accounting.
Next question was, can I apply if I have dual citizenship?
No, you can't. So I was a dual citizen. My parents were Canadian and American, and when I was 18, back then you had to declare, and I was getting a passport out, and so I declared my U.S. citizenship. But yeah, you have to be a U.S. citizen. So I get that question a lot, that some people are dual citizens because their parents were in the military. They were born in Germany, so they're have their German and U.S. But no, you would have to recluse one of those. But again, I would say the same thing as I think it was Philip that asked the question. I would still suggest that you send me that information, and then we can send that up to HR, and HR can run the information and come back and say, here's what you'd have to do. And I don't know all the rules. As far as I know, you can't be, but maybe they say you can make it dormant while you're working. I don't know what that is, but again, if you have doubts, send me something and we'll try and work it and find out. I just had someone that I was talking about that he was terminated for cause and one for a reason, and I sent it up to our security folks, and they come back and said, well, I don't think it'll affect what we're doing, so we're going to go ahead. I got an interview with him tomorrow. So, we'll try and run it to ground, and it is the government. We try to be inclusive of everybody, but that is one thing that's a little bit tough, is you have to be a U.S. citizen. Just because we work with, classified documents that are sensitive. So that's just the way it is. But yeah, send me your information and I'll try and, run it up, and we'll figure out what we can do.
Next question in the chat was, how much time does the typical hiring process take, and how soon after being hired would the position typically begin?
Great question. That really depends. So if you're still taking school right now, how it basically goes is if you guys send me transcripts and resumes, and you're going to be graduating by June of 2024, and you qualify, right? You got your that you're a citizen and have your 24 credits of accounting. I will start the process, and I'll interview you. And if you meet that interview process, then I send it to our HR, and HR will reach out to you within 7 days and start the process of background checks. And then, quite frankly, it just depends on how busy the background check people are for what they're doing. But if you're not graduating until June 2024, then you won't actually come to work till you have your official transcript that says you have a degree and 24 credits of accounting. So it all depends. If you're already have your degree and you're just changing jobs and do it, it's just as quick as we can get it in, and they say your background check is good. And then it's very flexible. I tell people, try to be flexible. Let's say you are graduating in December 2023, but you have a big family trip planned in January. Well, we'll be flexible. You just tell the HR people that you want to start February 1st or something like that. It won't recluse you from what you're doing. So it's a flexible process, but the process of background checks just depends, because there's a certain agency that does it. And we're trying to hire 700 people across the country. So you can imagine if we've got other agencies that are trying to hire 500 or 600, and they're all sent it to an agency to do the background checks, there might be some, delay there for a week or two. But I think most background checks are coming back in a month to 2 months max. Hopefully that helps.
Next question was, does veterans preference waive the educational requirements?
No. Nope, you still have to have 24 credits of accounting.
The next one is there an office in South Korea?
There is not. Not that I'm aware of. I'm pretty sure there's not, but we audit South Korea out of Wiesbaden, Germany, if we have government contractors in South Korea. That's where our auditors would be. They would go into South Korea for a week or two, gather information from the contract personnel there, and go back to Wiesbaden, write up their report, do those things. But I'm not aware of right now. I'm pretty sure that Wiesbaden is the only place. We do have an office in Israel, and I have not reached out and found out. We've had several people from from here in Utah. I think there's been 4 of them. 2 of them is retired, have spent 3 years with their families in that office in Israel. So it's probably a tense thing for them now. But we do have an office in Israel and Wiesbaden, and those are the only 2 that I'm aware of. I don't believe we have an office in Saudi Arabia anymore. I know we don't have one in Kuwait or Afghanistan or Iraq. So
Next question, can you pick the office you work at, or is it assigned at random?
great question. Really good question. No, you pick where you want to go. We try to set you up for success. So I had during the pandemic, we got a new hire out of Sacramento, California. He came to Utah, no friends, no family here. We were only going to the office 1 day a week. We did that for a month, and then they shut us down. And he only lasted about 4 months working for us. He had no friends, couldn't go out to clubs or, sporting events, whatever, meet friends, whatever. And he's here by himself. He chose to come here, but that's what we want to do. We want you to go somewhere that, you have family there, you have some sort of connection, you went to school there, you live there, you always wanted to be, whatever it is. But no, when we go there, when I turn your name into HR, usually during the interview process, I'll ask you for 3 locations, and it could be as specific as Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas, and Irvine, Texas, or it could be anywhere in Dallas or anywhere in Texas, anywhere in Utah, anywhere in Arizona. And then our HR folks will work with you and let you know where the openings are at, and decide if we can get you to a place that you want to go and we have openings at.
Would an individual qualify if they do have a master's but no related experience?
Master's in accounting, I'm assuming, then yes, you would. So to come on with our job, you don't need to have any experience. We hire students right out of college with no experience. We don't care if they did an internship in accounting or auditing or anything else. If you get 24 credits of accounting, an accounting degree, and you interview well, you're qualified to work for us. You do not need any experience.
And then next question, are there remote opportunities available?
No. What we're doing now is a hybrid. So the type of work we do when we're auditing, we have to go to the contractor location. If they're building something and they have an assembly line or whatever they're doing, we have to be there. We have to see what they're doing. Now, with that being said, we're only going into the office 1 day a week. So, we encourage our employees, obviously, if they need to be in there more than 1 day a week because something's going on at the facility that they're auditing or whatever, then they need to do that. But we do not have 100% remote work anywhere right now. Like I said, it's 1 day a week, and whether that'll change in the future, not sure. My opinion, when I was a supervisor, I liked my new hires coming in more often to start with because there's so much they need to learn, and they can learn in the office around other teammates and being at the contractor location. But no, we do not have 100% remote anywhere.
Next question, the only office near me is listed as a field detachment. Is that a location that we can be hired to?
You can. So the difference with the field detachment, just so people know, is usually that's they usually are working with classified documents. So a lot of our field detachment, that's an arm across the country that we've got in our offices where they are dealing with classified documents. That's usually a field detachment. And in most cases, you only have to have a secret clearance, but some cases in field detachment, you have to have a top secret because you are dealing with classified documents.
And that seems to be the end of the questions. Kelly, I know you had listed your email, and you had said if people do have questions, they can certainly reach out to you. Just a reminder to everyone that this session was recorded, so if you do want to go back and reference anything during that was covered today, you can certainly do that. It's been brought up a few times during the presentation, and Kelly and I have been working on this. I feel like we've been chatting about this for over a year at this point, Kelly, but just talking about the master's degree requirement for this. So since WGU does not have a set GPA, you have the pass fail for your courses. It is equivalent to a 3.0, but because that 3.0 is not listed on your official transcript, they're not able to hire bachelor's level students or bachelor's level degrees. Now, the loophole that we figured out here is getting your master's would equate to that. So that's what we were discussing with this through the hiring process. As long as you have your master's level degree, then they're not looking back to see what GPA you earned. So with us here at WGU, the GPA isn't listed on the transcript. So that's what we were talking about with that. Just to be clear, if anybody did have questions on that, I know Kelly had covered that, but just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. As long as you have your master's degree, then you're good to go for this. Awesome. Well, Kelly, I do want to thank you for jumping in today, sharing these fantastic opportunities, your own experience. I know we greatly appreciate that. And then I think everybody else, taking the time, jump on the call, and hopefully you had the questions that you might have had answered, and hopefully you go ahead and apply.
Okay, thanks everyone. I appreciate you being here today. And again, as RJ said, feel free to send out if there's some questions. I know sometimes we get in here and people don't feel comfortable asking questions. If you have questions that you want me to try and answer, by all means, send me an email and I'll try to be responsive and answer those questions for you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, RJ. Appreciate you putting this together.
Absolutely. Take care, Kelly.